So let's prepare ourselves. If you put your hand over your eyes, I open my eyes to see the spiritual truth today. Now over your ears, I open my ears to hear the spiritual truth today. Now if you put your hand over your heart and just extend your arms, I open my heart to receive the spiritual truth today. The spiritual truth that I'm working with today is that your friends are your feelings are your best spiritual teachers. Your feelings, all of them, are your best spiritual teachers. Those feelings that make you happy, the ones that make you just want to get up in the day because you're just happy, those feelings. And also your feelings of rage and hopelessness and anger and resentment. Those are also your best spiritual teachers. Now, those of us who have been around a while, we know that we don't have to like the teacher in order to get an A in the class. But we do have to understand what the teacher wants in order to get an A in the class. It's really a call for us to be able to begin embracing our feelings, understanding our feelings, and working with them in a spiritual way. You know, it's not all of them are happy. I heard an interview with Rob Lowe earlier this week about being a father. And he said the hardest thing about being a father was not being a friend. To learn that he could not be his kid's friend. That wasn't his role. Doesn't mean that he didn't love them. It doesn't mean that they didn't have fun together. But his role was not to be their friend. It was to be their father. And he said, because my job is to teach them how to become men. How to live a life of happiness and contribution and meaning. That's true of your feelings. You don't have to like them. But they're there to teach you to be whole, perfect, and complete people in every way, experientially. See, you are whole, perfect, and complete. Nothing you can do about that. But we don't know it. So in order to know it, we have to do the spiritual work so that we can begin to experience it. Well, for the purpose of today, we're gonna just recognize that our feelings are located in our hearts. That's where our feelings are today. You've heard that phrase. Some people say, "Oh, he or she they just wear their heart on their sleeve. They wear their feelings on their sleeve." No, they don't. They wear it. They may wear them there, but it originates always in the heart. Solomon, who is the wisest man, considered by many to be the wisest man in all of the world. He wrote most of Ecclesiastes, he wrote most of Proverbs, and what he said is this: if you don't remember anything else I read or anything else I say, remember this from Proverbs. Guard your heart. Guard your heart. It is the wellspring of your life. See, we parent from our heart. We conduct ourselves in our marriages from our heart. We handle our business from our heart. We buy cars from our heart. Our heart is so important, and Solomon wanted us to know that we have to pay attention to what's going in our heart and what's going out of our heart. What he said is, look, pay attention to your feelings. Embrace them. Get to know them. Understand them. Because they can inform you of so many things on your way to happiness. Now, if you've been coming here a while, you know that there's nothing new in new thought. Absolutely zip that's new in new thought. And what Gary Zukav has done with this book that we've been studying this past 3 or 4 weeks is he's repackaged Solomon's wisdom with that notion of take care of your feelings. Guard your heart. For everything emanates from your heart. Now, those of you in here through the series, you know that the premise of this book is we're moving on into a new evolutionary step. We started out as sponges, we went to fish, we went to primates, we came early human beings, and now we're more mature human beings. And we've entered into this area in which we're no longer depending on the notion of the survival of the fittest. We're no longer depending on the understanding that you have to be the strongest and the toughest, because that's external power. What he's saying is we need to move away from depending on external power and move into internal power. Why? Because external power can change that fast. You may be the smartest right now, but there's going to be a whippersnapper come along smarter than you at some point in your life. You may be the prettiest right now, but gravity is going to go ahead and set in at some point. Okay? So that's external. What we want to do is rely on internal power. That's our work. It's not to ignore external power. We have to know what our boss wants. See, external power is what somebody gives you. Your boss gives you a little bit of power. Your mate gives you some power. Your bank account gives you some power. But all that is transitory. We don't want to ignore it. We want to notice it's there, but we don't want to rely on it to the same extent that we rely on this internal power, which he calls soul power. That power that is connected up to the divine. That's the strongest power that you have. And you have no end of measure to it, to that power. There's a lady who got this really well. She stopped relying on external power, totally relied on internal power. There was a Christian lady who lived next door to an atheist. Every day when the lady prayed, the atheist guy could hear her. He thought to himself, she sure is crazy, praying all the time like that. Doesn't she know there isn't a God? Many times while she was praying, he would go to her house and harass her. Nice guy. Saying, lady, why do you pray all the time? Don't you know there is no God? But she kept on praying. One day she ran out of groceries. As usual, she was praying to the Lord, explaining her situation and thanking him for what he was going to do. Foundations, remember that in foundations? You put it out there as if it's already happened, okay? When she opened the door and saw the groceries, she wept and began to praise the Lord with all her heart. The atheist, what he was going to do, I've forgotten it was a paragraph. As usual, the atheist heard her praying and thought to himself, I'll fix her. He went to the grocery store, bought a whole bunch of groceries, took them to her house, dropped them off on the front porch, rang the bell, and then hid in the bushes to see what she would do. When she opened the door, she saw the groceries, wept, and began to praise the Lord with all her heart. The atheist then jumped out of the bushes and told her, you crazy old lady, God didn't buy you those groceries. I bought you those groceries. Slowly, she turned to him bearing a huge grin. He looked hard at her and he asked what her problem was. She laughed and she said, I knew the Lord would provide me with some groceries, but I didn't know he was going to make the devil pay for them. See, she was relying on internal power, and the world began to move to help her out. She had her head in the right place. Zukov says that in order for us to have internal power, we've got to open our heart. We have to be able to begin to rely on what's inside in a faithful way. See, most of us, and to open our heart, we have to know what our feelings are. We have to look at them. We have to not be afraid of them. We have to know they're just feelings. We don't have to act on them. We don't have to not act on them. They're just feelings that are inside of our heart. And if we want to begin to be people who can rely on soul power as opposed to external power, these feelings are critical in our life. See, and I do this. I'm not a real big, let's talk about my feelings person. I'm just not that person. I have to really work at this, knowing that it's a spiritual practice. I like what Zukov says in the book. He says, we treat our feelings like our tonsils. They're there, but they all they do is make us miserable if they act at all. If they're capable of making us very miserable. That's kind of how I treat feelings. But the truth of the matter is, feelings are really, really important for us to look at and not run away from and not push down. See, this whole church is sprinkled with people who have pushed down our feelings with drugs and alcohol and food and all manner of things to make ourselves feel better and not feel the true feelings that are inside. And what did we do? At the end of the day, all we had was the greater feeling of shame that we had to do. We just simply made it worse by pushing it down behind all of those external things. But it's not just the negative feelings that we run away from. You and I tend to run away from the positive feelings as well. You know, the whole book of The Big Leap is just about this, us running away from positive feelings and having us scared about those. We say things like, well, life is so good, I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop. You know? Or it can't be this good all of the time. Yeah, actually, it can be that good all of the time. When we're in alignment with our soul, we're in alignment with joy and peace and happiness. So when we have those feelings, we need to cultivate them. We need to choose to have those more often. Some of us don't like to have feelings because we think it's mushy sentimentality. It's just the opposite of that. I'm not talking about, sweetie, sweetie talk. I'm not partial to that either. And sometimes in spiritual communities, we get all involved in thinking that's somehow spiritual. All that, I'm not even going to say it. It just doesn't work. That's not what I mean. See? It doesn't, you all know it doesn't feel authentic. I know it doesn't feel authentic. It's not really authentic. That's not the kind of love that I'm talking about here. I'm talking about choosing. I'm talking about choosing to be a heart-centered person. When we can choose love instead of choosing our frightened parts. That's what allows us to have it just allows us to have all kinds of compassion, not only for ourselves, but for other people. When we begin to choose to have love instead of fear. Sometimes I look at people like Justin Bieber, and I think, what is with this kid? Who is going to help this child out? He needs somebody to come along and help him understand. And the truth is, he's getting his lessons. He's getting his lessons. And when I can come from love instead of judgment, I can come from compassion about what's going on with him. I can pray for him instead of just, tisk, tisk this, and oh my God, tisk, tisk that. See? When we can see, we see he has a desire, and other people, myself, we see it in ourselves. We have a desire to succeed. And Zukov says this, sometimes we have a desire to succeed, but we stop it at desire. And desire will not allow you to succeed. You have to turn desire into intention. That's very powerful for me because I have a lot of desires. And then now I see, well, if I'm really desiring this, I can't stop here. It's not enough. I have to turn that desire into an intention. How do you turn a desire into an intention? It's not fleeting. It's not a glimpse. You have to apply spiritual practice to your desire to turn it into a clear intention. And that is through visualization. You have to spend some time really thinking about it, making a movie about it, seeing if it actually sounds and feels right after you spend a while with it, turning it from desire into intention. Is it still what you want? Because believe me, we make these big life decisions without really thinking them through, without turning it into a clear enough intention in our life. When we set a clear intention, the world will move. The universe will begin to move. Now, there may be blocks before it becomes manifestation, but those blocks are ones we threw up because we got scared. We stepped back in our life. Some of you have had the experience where something has happened good in your life and you said, boy, I didn't wish for that. I didn't know I was up for a promotion. I didn't get it. I didn't know that. Your soul had an intention. Your personality may not have known it that time, but your soul had an intention for that good to come into your life. He says the most important thing about intention, if you get to the point of intention away from desire, is to get clear about it and then take a 100% commitment to it, to that intention. So he says, for instance, he uses relationships as an example. And what he says is sometimes people set an intention for their relationship to change. Not good enough. You have to set an intention either to improve your relationship or to complete your relationship, to make it better or get a divorce. He says, don't make a judgment over either one. Figure out which it is you want. But once you pick that one, take complete 100% responsibility and for your thoughts around that one intention. Because so much of the time, what happens is we water our intention down. And often we water our intention down with just, being stuck because we don't really want to make a decision. And that's okay. If that's where you are, that's okay. But if you want one of those two things, either a better relationship or a different relationship with a different person or none at all, then that's what you need to do in order to get unstuck. And we're not meant to be stuck. Human beings are not meant to be stuck people. We're meant to move on and on. You're a power of light. You have all of this internal soul power you could possibly need to light your life and to make the kind of life that you want for yourself. You can't ever, ever, ever extinguish your power. You can never extinguish your power. You can never, ever, ever extinguish your power. Hallelujah. Thank you. I thought I was going to have to say it more times. You can't extinguish it, but you can drain it. You can drain your power until it's low in your experience. And the way that you do that is through fear. When you choose fear, as opposed to choosing love, you've just drained your power. When you choose anger, and all anger is fear. When you choose fear instead of love, you've just drained your ability to be as powerful as you possibly want. Try it in your life. Try it and see if it doesn't start working in your life. It's a choice. It's a choice. Stuff around here in the morning before Sunday, I'm trying to get ready, everything, and there can be 20 things that go wrong. Little tiny, inconsequential things on their own, inconsequential. But for instance, 9 o'clock, the microphone doesn't work. After I told the group last night about 5 times, don't touch this, don't touch this. Reverend, we're not going to touch this. Okay, I get here this morning, the microphone doesn't work. And I chose anger in the beginning. And then I said, do you hear yourself? Do you hear what you're saying to the people? Okay. Choose love. Choose compassion. All right? Once I began to choose that, I actually started feeling better. Try it. Play with it. See if it doesn't happen. See, fear drains, love and compassion return. Fear drains your power, love and compassion returns. I'm not a monk, but if I were a monk, I would just take that phrase and I would go off somewhere for a while and I would just meditate on that. Fear drains, love and compassion returns. Fear drains, love and compassion returns. The kind of power that I want every day. See, our job is not just to build ourselves up into a fabulous life, but it's to share and build this fabulous life with other people. It's not only to bless ourselves, but to bless other people in our life. And when we are, and I'm not talking, this anger isn't just with individual things that happen with us, but generally we get ourselves all hooked up into anger when compassion is what's really called for. I'm going to tell you that when Boko Haram stole those little girls, I was livid for days, livid. I kept having this visualization. You don't know a lot about my past, but there was a group called the Lavender Berets, and I wasn't a part of them, but I was aware of them. And they kind of were like little vigilantes. They were kind of vigilante people. And of course, I wouldn't be involved in any of that. So, but there was a mind I had that the Lavender Braves were going to go over and take care of the Boko Haram, and it was not a pretty sight in my little visualization. See, I had chosen anger. I had chosen resentment. I had chosen the wrong thing to make myself happy or to do anything that would be part of anything over there. So it's really work. It's spiritual work. If you want to be a powerful being on the planet, you've got to choose love and compassion every single time. Now look, don't beat yourself up. There's no shame and blame in this game. So you might have a flash of, why did they touch the microphone? I told them not to touch the microphone. But that's all I get to have, is just a little tiny bit. And then I move into love. I'm so glad I was able to amplify whatever it was they felt they needed to say. See? So happy about that. But you have to move it. You know, you have to move it along. You just not go from A to Z. You have to move it along, but you have to do that in order to make yourself a very powerful person. So this is the end of our book, our series on this book. But I want to tell everybody, look, this is a powerful book. If you're joining us today, it's called The Seed of the Soul. It's an old book, 25 years old. 25th anniversary is going out. I invite people to really take this into their summertime and to spend a chapter a week on it. Don't go through the whole thing. It's too dense. Make you crazy. But just go through it a little bit at a time and really get into it, because I'm promising you, it will change how you live your beautiful life. Let's take this into prayer. Knowing that the heart and the mind and the love of the Most High God is right where we are all the time, every time. There's no place where that one presence couldn't go. No place. That love is all around us. Everywhere we go, love is. Everywhere we go, compassion is. And so now I look for it now, and I give thanks for it. I give thanks for every heart from which it comes. I give thanks for every heart from which it is stuck inside. I give thanks to the Great One for always saying yes. I release this word into the law, and together we say, and so it is.